Victoria, and welcome to Unique Festivals, Brand It and They Will Come. This is co-presented by Melbourne Music Week, and we've got a fantastic panel today, and after the very insightful interview with AJ, we're going to continue the theme of talking about festivals. So firstly, I'll give you a bit of an idea what the panel's about. If we go back to Sunbury in 1972, it was pretty much bring a couple of truckloads of beer and put on some bands and turn up the amps, and everyone had a good time because they didn't have anything to compare it to. But festivals have come a long way since then, and people travel the world. A lot of people from Melbourne travel probably to a number of these people's festivals in Wellington and Sydney, and even over to Spain, or just hanging out at the Forum Theatre just around the corner. So we're talking about the branding your own festivals, boutique festivals, and fans' expectations and what they expect from the value add with festivals today. So I'll introduce the panel. We've got Fergus Lynham from Vivid in Sydney. Thanks for coming down. We've got Ian Jorgensen from Camp Alohum in Wellington. Thanks for coming across. We've got Nikki Reed from our own Sugar Mountain. And we've got Alberto and Almudena from Primavera in Spain, in Barcelona, which we're very excited to have you both here. Alberto runs the festival, and Almudena runs Primavera Pro, which is the conference part of the festival. So we'll get you to explain a little bit about that. I thought I might just ask you all to start off with, what was the first festival, music festival, that you ever went to, and what impression did it make on you? You don't have to start.
In New Zealand, we don't have a lot of festivals, and I guess when I was younger, there was really only two, and that was, Big Day Out, and then there was like the kind of the Bogan. You have Bogans here? Bodgies. Bogans? All right. You have Bogans. We have Bodgies. Yeah. All right. The Bodgie, New Zealand Bodgie Festival called Mountain Rock, and I think that was my first festival when I was like 15 or 16. Hooked up with some girls. Partied to some rock music, she had rock. Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't really taken that much with it other than it just being a festival and being there with friends, I didn't really think, it was going to Big Day Out years later and realising how much it sucked that made me want to do other stuff.
So that's the lasting impression, that you wanted to do something.
I've got a good Twitter account too, not just AJ, no.
Nikki, can you remember your first festival?
It was, I grew up in North Queensland. My first festival was called Little Day Out. It was a community-run festival for under 18s only.
There's a Little Day Out in New Zealand too.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a good name.
Sue that shit.
And I think Frenzell Rum headlined, maybe. Yeah, we got dressed up in our fluoros. It was awesome. It didn't make me want to put on a festival, though. That just came later. No coincidence.
I imagine putting your own festival on means you can't get to enjoy that festival as much as the others, so...
yeah, I don't wear as much glow paint as I did.
Alberto?
Well, my first festival was working, and was Doctor Music Festival in the Pyrenees, in the middle of the mountains. Was the bigger festival in Spain in that moment. Only there was 3 editions, very expensive. The artists need about 4 hours to arrive to the site, with roads, with a lot of mountain roads, and well, it's the site was spectacular, and I was programming the electronic part of the festival, and my first festival was working.
Yeah, I think that my first festival, as I remember, was in 1995 or so. I was working for an independent record label, electronic music, so it was Sonar, as I remember. It was then a small festival, it's a big one now. And it was an urban festival, so there was not a camping site and so, and it was a small one, but really funny, and I really liked it. So on that I'm now working for festivals and so it was an important experience.
I think mine was just this big 1980s thing in a park in Dublin, which was Simple Minds, Eurythmics and Big Country. And that's pretty much all I can remember.
So we might get you now to just explain a little bit about your festival for people who haven't been, and then and also tell us what makes it unique, what makes it different to other festivals.
The festival I run is called Vivid Live, and it's part of a larger festival in Sydney, which is to do with kind of light sculptures and interactive digital art, but our part is mostly the live part of it. It was originally conceived as a sort of version of Meltdown, which happens in the South Bank in London every year, which is you invite an artist to curate a festival. But it grew quite a lot, and just the particular practicalities of being in Australia meant that asking someone who didn't understand the nature of touring through, it wasn't really working for us. So what we decided we would do is we were doing much more programming in the Opera House, and this is Sydney Opera House, I should say, throughout the year. And I was booking the programming. So what we decided was that we should have a place during the year for special projects. So people who would come through just with their regular tours during the year, we'd often invite them back to do something with resident companies like the Symphony Orchestra, or do something, some kind of special show. And so we have a 10-day festival in May, June, throughout all of the venues, the 6 venues in the Opera House, which is kind of innovation in popular music, I guess.
Can I just ask, you curate it yourselves now? You used to have artists and record label producers curating it. Did you change that policy when Lou Reed fell asleep during the Boris concert? Lou Reed chose his favourite bands, and Japanese band trio, metal trio called Boris were playing. And Lou Reed was sitting up in the balcony, and he was fast asleep during most of the gig.
No. But we did decide then that just the nature of, as I said, kind of Australia was you had to be having more than a 1 year out conversation, and you really had to be very tuned into. There was also a thing as well of creating a festival and not having a really strong local element to it. But I think the basis of Meltdown, or doing the same thing in New York, was that you could phone up a whole bunch of people and they could just drop by to do one song and things. Whereas in Australia, that just wasn't practicable. So it was more, and it still isn't, I mean, we do curate it per se, but we still, what we like to do is we like to invite lots of people in. It's really supposed to be an open book for ideas, and we work with all sorts of people in Australia and ask them kind of to create nights for us or do special projects. So it isn't so much a singular vision, it's more a context to ask interesting people to sort of just come up with interesting ideas.
Ian, you are multifaceted in the music industry. Did you create a festival to put your band somewhere to put your bands on and sell some CDs? Can you tell us the thought process behind that, behind setting it up, and if that was the case?
I actually hated music festivals, and I told everyone I'd never ever put one on because they sucked. And then I realised that I didn't actually have to put on a music festival. I could actually put on something which was not a music festival but was really good, and that was kind of the idea of it. And it was just going to be a party, and it was just going to be a party at a campground. And that's why one of the things which makes it unique is that I don't announce any of the bands who are playing at it. And that just came about because I really just didn't, I was just like, well, it's just a party, you know, just come if you want, you know, whatever. And but then it just started getting bigger and bigger. And but like whenever I'd announce it, I hadn't booked a single band, and so I didn't have any bands to announce, and I didn't really want to. And so, but the first one was so good, and I kind of knew that. I didn't think it was anything a big deal about it. I was just like, oh, I'm not announcing who's playing. Just come along. It's going to be a good time. And but everyone made this big fuss about it. You're not announcing the bands. That's crazy. And I was like, well, yeah, but I've toured 70 bands through New Zealand over the past 3 years. You all know what I'm into. Like, it's pretty obvious, you know. And yeah, pretty much all of those bands played at the first festival. Like, so, but I knew going into that, if I could pull that off, and it worked, then I'd be in like the most envious position of any promoter basically in the world, and that you can just sell out an event and not tell anyone what's happening at it. So there's that, but there's the probably, I mean, that's a pretty, I guess, unique thing to the event. But there's also the other things which I'm more kind of proud of, is that this kind of this renegade concept of which I've let kind of go on through the event, which at the very first festival, one band, because most of the bands play 2 sets as well, so you always get a chance to see the band. You know, I try to avoid clashes and that sort of thing. So you know, at the first event, one of the bands decided, they actually had to get back to Auckland sooner, so they just decided to cancel this one of their shows, and they took another band's set, and then all this crap happened and everything got shuffled around, and it worked out that one band who was meant to play didn't get to play their show when they were meant to play. So they just came up to me and they said, "Oh, can we just grab some drum kits and guitar amps and stuff and just throw them in that cabin over there and just do a party later on?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever, I don't care." So they did that, and then that party just went all night. And it was like even though I curated and organised this awesome festival with all these bands, like the thing that everyone remembered was just this random party in a cabin. So I kind of realised then that the strongest part of the event would just be me actually just letting people do whatever they want. And that's continued throughout the thing, whereas now I set up, I call it like planned chaos, and that like I'll provide the stuff. So I'll provide extra PAs, I provide backline, I provide an engineer, lighting, and basically anyone who's at the event who wants to perform can do so. They just come up and they tell me, they book a spot, and they go and play a show, and they draw up posters, and they stick those posters around the site. And that's probably become one of the most popular parts of the event, which is like a real damaging on my ego that the most popular part of the event I really have nothing to do with. And also another really important part of the event is that I treat bands and punters pretty much the same. Like, the bands don't get +1s or anything. They don't get. A couple of them get meals, but I mean, they don't get rider. There's no passes. There's none of this. Like, I can't stand this sort of stuff when people walk around with passes around their neck, because for me it's just like, well, and here it's different because everybody's got one. But when you're at a festival and some people, it makes them like, well, they're special, but it's like everyone's the same. And I try to make sure everyone feels the same. So the artists integrate with the people at the event because they're there to enjoy it as well. They're there to party. There's no press, there's no media passes, there's no interviews can happen at the event. I don't because I don't want the bands to get drunk. I want the bands to party. I don't want them to have to worry about being interviewed and all that sort of crap. So there's that sort of philosophy is pretty important to me, whereas the not announcing bands thing is just like, well, whatever, that's just...
Yeah, some of the best festivals here started off as parties in a paddock, and some of the most legendary parts of traditions of a festival were complete accidents, so we love the random nature of it.
It's creating random. The creation of randomness is what it's about.
Nikki, you are the director of one of the few urban festivals in Melbourne. Generally, Melburnians like to go travelling and go camping and have a little break and enjoy their festival and all of that. But there are a couple in the city, and Sugar Mountain's really quite unique. Can you tell the audience a bit about it?
Yeah, Sugar Mountain now in its third year, or coming up. We're an arts and music festival based essentially at the Forum with side events, satellite events throughout the city over about a week in January. Yeah, I guess we started the festival, it really was a bunch of friends kind of sitting around going, imagine if, imagine if, imagine if. And then we tried to do it, and it's kind of evolved closer and closer to our dream idea of what we wanted to put on since then. The collaboration between artist and musician is a really huge part of what we do and what we want to put on. We really like the idea of kind of providing shows that you wouldn't see at a normal festival. We don't want... It's not just a festival where you go and see a band play their greatest hits or the latest album. We invite people to kind of come up and play with what we have with, the stage, the sites, the local artists that come and collaborate with the musicians. All of that is, I guess, part of our building something more interesting, I guess, or maybe just more unique to Sugar Mountain. Pretty much.
Thanks, Nikki. Alberto?
Well, Primavera began as a boutique festival, very small, for 8,000 people, and was began inside of the independent music scene with electronic underground sounds. And for us, it was important to have a festival, an urban festival that is comfortable for the public, and not in the fields like camping festivals. And our idea and criteria don't change during all the time in these years. It's the same criteria, but sometimes we like to break the rules of this scene and put another kind of artist and surprise of public. The site is very important for us. Our first festival began in kind of a small medieval village, and the concerts was in the squares of the village, but well, was the festival was bigger than the site, and we moved to another very attractive place in the city, a new place, just beside the sea, and you can see from each stage the sea, the Mediterranean, and it's very comfortable too, and very, very nice. There are not one idea because our festival is different. I think we realized that the city is very important for with the idea of the festival, and we began to program around the city in the same days of the festival, all kind of concerts. Concerts in bars, in the park, in underground, all in big spaces too, monumental spaces of the city, very well known, touristic places, but open for the citizens of Barcelona. And now it's a joint of activities in the city and the main concerts in this site, and it's 1 week of concerts. And well, the idea for us, the idea is only to program things around music, not other arts. If we program other kind of arts, or cinema, is documentaries about music, or last year we began to program Flash Talk, that is for poster exhibition. This poster exhibition is inside of the pop rock scene too, but not. We are not interested in program another kind of arts because this festival is made for music lovers and for music lovers, and you can find artists enjoying other concerts because it's the idea that all is around music, and well, it's a lot of few small things that do a big thing. Finally, now the festival began with 8,000 people. Now there are 150,000 people, and well, it's all the city is the festival.
Thank you for that, Alberto. I suppose what makes your festival quite unique is what Almudena does, which is run the conference, Primavera Pro. I'm interested in the idea of there being sort of a serious side to a festival and a learning side. Music Victoria does quite a few professional development workshops at festivals, but usually folk festivals, jazz festivals, we wouldn't do one at Meredith or Golden Plains because everyone's having too much of a good time and has no sleep. So can you please tell us a bit about how the conference works and how it complements the festival?
4 years ago, when I started working for Primavera Sound, it was because they realized that there were a lot of festival programmers, venue directors, promoters, and managers attending the festival just to see bands. One of the characteristics of the festival is that they have a lot of newcomers in the festival lineup. They are not only doing commercial or well-known bands, but also unknown bands, and so people went there just to see new bands, and so having such a lot of important professionals, we decided to organize something specific for them. So we created Primavera Pro, taking in account that people is attending the festival and they want to have beer, to see concerts, to have fun, and to meet people. So it's not a trade fair with stands, and so we provide the professionals a place to meet and some facilities to meet new people, to network, and so it will be in 2013. It will be the 4th year And the last year we had more than 1,500 delegates, and a lot of media. They were coming from 43 countries, and it is important to say that more than half the delegates are not Spanish, are from abroad. So it's an international conference, and we have grown up a lot in 3 years.
And the festival starts at 6 p.m. tonight, at 6 p.m. at night, and goes through till 6 a.m. So you can have the sort of serious side during the day, and then the festival doesn't start till after the conference, so it doesn't clash.
Well, we accept that time, and we know that professionals have until late they are seeing concerts, and so we start our activities between 11 a.m. or noon, not really early in the morning, because we know they will not be there, until 6 p.m. And we start the conference one day before the festival starts. And the last day of the conference is only for receptions, cocktail parties, and so, because people is tired after 2 or 3 days of concerts and so. So we try to adapt our schedule to their activities, social activities.
I have to say that the festival began with 2 stages and 20 bands, and now there are, in the main side, there are 200 bands play in 8 stages. And in the rest of the city, there are 10 more stages. And in total, there are 270 bands. For us, it's important to have as many stages we can, because we can program the diversity of bands from hip hop, pop, rock, indie, folk. We have an auditorium to more.
For more than 3,000 people?
Yes.
It's not an open-air auditorium.
Yes.
It's for special concerts.
Exactly. And, well, for us it's very important to have the opportunity to program the maximum diversity of bands. And, well, this is one of the reasons that professionals come to the festival to see bands and to know which will be the next big thing. In the same program, we have newcomers, new bands, and the bands are called bands?
Iconic bands.
Iconic bands that has influence to the new bands, and you can see in only one festival the history of the last 40 years of the pop rock in one festival.
We might talk about how bands do approach you about getting on your festival bills. Fergus, I imagine a few years ago that bands had to be chosen by the curators. Does it still work like that, or can bands approach you throughout the year?
I mean, most of the time we're looking for something very specific, and we're actually trying to stay out of the hair of a lot of the existing festivals as well. And because what we're looking for is, at times it's people who just haven't been to Australia before. So for one reason or another, Janelle Monáe or Bat for Lashes didn't come out on an album, and there's that sort of strange kind of where do they come in then? And so they just come out and do a special show. So we're kind of looking at that area, but then we just have our ear to the ground. And so, like someone who's been through the venue, like Sufjan Stevens, who did a collaboration with Bryce Dessner from the National and the composer Nico Muller. So we would have just heard about that, and we would have gone, okay, and commissioned that with the Barbican and with another venue in Europe. So it's kind of keeping your ear about all of those, but also talking to a lot of promoters as well, who have someone who they want to bring in, and the Opera House might just be the thing that triggers it. The power of the Opera House is fantastic. There's no doubt. There's something about it that artists just feel, there's a bit of validation. There's kind of, and they're right. It is something that we want to sort of really make a statement about the quality of what they're doing. So probably more than anywhere else I've worked, it's the easiest place to get people's attention, to sort of say, we really want you to come and play at the Sydney Opera House. but it's also just because what we're looking for is quite specific, that the search is relatively narrow.
And we should say that Vivid Live is held during the APRA Song Summit and the APRA Awards, so there is a bit of a conference context to it as well.
Yeah, and there's a part called Vivid Ideas, which is about kind of creative industries generally, so that kind of runs alongside it.
Ian, how do you just put your own bands on the festival? How does someone approach you?
I've got a very probably the most open dialogue, I guess, with bands, in that I just have a form on my website that's just free. You know, people don't have to pay to submit their band for the festival. They just put in the name of their band and like a couple of links, and they just click submit. And because it's so easy, it's actually annoying because I get like 1,000 bands applying. Even Melbourne is actually the largest amount of bands. I get like 400 bands from Melbourne. I didn't even know there were 400 bands in Melbourne, but it's crazy. And so I just spend like half my year just listening to all these bands. And it's pretty intense because of those bands. I mean, I'll curate most of it by just going to shows. All year I just go to shows. Like every night I'm out. We usually do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll go to like 4 shows a night. And last year when I was in Australia, I was here for like 3 weeks and I saw like 550 bands. And one night I went to like 9 gigs in a night. And tonight I'm going to 4 shows. But I mean, it's just trying to maximize that and see every band you can, because my festival is so curated on what a band is like live. You know, we're not playing their CDs; they're performing live. So when bands apply and I can't see them live, it's pretty tough. I just have to try and watch videos off YouTube. I have to try and visualize what it's actually like. I have to talk to friends who may have seen them. So if we're talking from an Australian perspective, I probably had around 600 bands apply direct from Australia this year. I have about 25. I have like 25 bands from Australia play. Like, where's AJ? Like, is AJ Amera around? Like, I've got 25 bands playing at my event, man. Maybe you can like have a couple at yours. So I have like these 25 spots, but I mean, I have like an insane amount of bands, and of those 25 spots, some of them are bands that I already know, and so I'll probably find about 10 from the people who apply who I don't know of. So this year I came over to Australia for about 3 or 4 weeks. I was going to put on a couple of shows, but Parklife stole my after party. So I ended up having to go to a whole bunch of bands' practices, which is what that's like the most awkward thing to do, man. I don't know if anyone else does that, but I have to go to lots of bands' practice spaces, and I just sit there in the room while they play. I go to dudes' bedrooms, man, and I just watch them while they just play on their computer doing just laptop stuff, which is like super awkward. But I mean, it's like I have to do that, because people expect my festival, and especially when Australian, heaps of people from Australia come to my festival, and they expect me to have bands from Australia that they haven't heard of. So for that, I have to actually go to people's practices and bands who have barely ever played. So last time I was in Melbourne, it was just crazy. I had all these bands practices, but so it's intense. It's intense what I do, but so it's just listening to bands over and over. But anyone at all can send me an email and I'll check them out. And I listen to everybody. I try to listen to a band before I look at a photo of them because because I'm all about aesthetics, and sometimes I look at a band and I'll just be like, oh. But I'll try to make a decision about their music before I even look at them, because sometimes, be careful what you say. I tell bands not to send me bios. Every year I go, don't send me a bio. Don't tell me how good you are. I'll work it out. But every year, and I don't even give them room to do it, but they stick it in there. I'll be stick in a YouTube link, but it's instead of a YouTube link, it's about 1,000 words about how they're the hottest Triple J Unearthed act ever. And it's every single band in Australia is on Triple J Unearthed, pretty much. Every band who applies to camp is so I tell them not to do it. They still do it. Don't do it. Just let your music talk and let your videos talk. Don't talk about how good you are.
Well, Martin Atkins was certainly suggesting that this morning in a very different way. So you've backed that up. Nikki, what's the spread of your bands, local bands to?
It's about half and half. That's grown. The first year we only had 4 internationals, I think, but now we've grown 8 or 9 on the program for next year. Live performance is a huge part of what we're looking for. We really yeah, that's a huge part. We don't go to bands' bedrooms though. That's something we've never done.
Really
we make do with YouTube, but and shows. But there's 4 of us who run Sugar Mountain, and we knock the ideas around the whole time. We don't have an application process. I think we kind of all year round we're going to shows, reading blogs, listening to music, absorbing it, and by the time we come around to booking the next year, we already have a huge wish list kind of thing. And then we just kind of whittle it down to what works. It's definitely a whole picture thing. We don't really look to headliners as such. Yeah, we like the idea of kind of putting lots of bands together that make sense. And we have the opportunity at Sugar Mountain as well to put on a lot of smaller local bands, and that's a huge thing for us. Bands that, yeah, are doing well but are probably too small to make it to Meredith for the next couple of years, they can come and play with us and still put on an amazing show at a stage that 200 people can see them, and it's still a festival experience. Yeah.
Alberto, a number of Australian bands have played at Primavera, The Scientists and The Dirty Three and Nick Cave.
Every year there are Australian bands, yeah.
Yeah, every year.
Yes, sure.
Which other Australian bands have played?
Last year,
Three,
it was Dirty Three,
Dirty Three,
and the previous
Nick
year,
Cave.
Dirty Deep Sea Arcade, previous year.
And how do you choose your bands, and how can bands approach you to get on the festival?
Local bands?
Yeah,
Yes.
any bands, yeah.
Any band. Yes, we have, now we have 4 bookers in the company, and it's the part of the company that is growing faster with more people, and they are mad of music, always are speaking about music, and sometimes is perhaps a little bit a snob, but I think it's well, it's the way to arrive to another people that help us to program, like Pitchfork. That is one of the programmers in one of our stages, or ATP, the festival, is another of the programmers or one of the stages, and the Vice magazine, and all together we see the music in the same way, and we speak the same language at the time to program. And well, as said before, we began in the indie pop rock music scene, but now we put sometimes sometimes we put another kind of bands to provocative, controversial, of public, as metal bands, or last year, because or flamenco or world music. Some bands that we know that doing richer or program and have some relations with the scene and doing richer the music scene. And in relation with the local scene, we are inside of the scene since always. I don't remember, since I began, and there are a lot of, perhaps the 30% of the bands are from Spain, and well, we have a very good relation. We don't see the scene from outside. We are inside of the scene. We support the scene, because if the scene grows, the festival grows, the magazines grows, and everything grows. And well, it's part of the festival. There are another stage that perhaps is.
One of the 8 stages in the festival is the showcasing stage that is associated with Primavera Pro. So it's a stage for newcomers, and they are proposed by the countries participating in Primavera Pro. So we work with export music offices from all over the world, and they propose bands. The booking team has the last word. I mean, the bands must be accepted by the booking team because it is important for us that all the bands playing in the festival are the same level, the same quality. So to guarantee the showcasing bands that the professionals attend the delegates and so will understand and accept their kind of music. Yeah. So they apply through their countries, and also we have a collaboration agreement with Sonic Beats. So we choose one non-European band and one European band, and those two bands are supported economically by Sonic Beats and by Primavera Pro.
So bands and managers can go to your website to see how to apply? If bands want to apply to play?
If a band wants to apply, we have a link in our website, www.pro.primaverasound.com. So they just apply through Sonic Beats, and our booking team listen to all the proposals and choose the two ones that will come to the festival.
In terms of other support that you get for your festival, particularly regional festivals have a very big economic benefit for the community. So interested in any of you, if there's economic impact statements on your festivals, how much support you get from for governments. Might be zero in your case, Ian, but obviously you can get some strong support from a festival once it reaches a certain stage and you're employing a lot of local people and it's having a big impact on local economy.
I mean, the funny thing about Vivid was that it was actually set up with that in mind. So, and I've kind of worked with the Opera House and with Sydney Festival before in these kind of quite governmental organisations, and you're trying to bolt on the way the music industry works onto something which can be very, bureaucratic and sometimes old-fashioned, and the music industry is very entrepreneurial and moves very quickly, can be quite difficult. But in this case, it was set up because it was just seen that time of the year in Sydney was very dead. I mean, there's lots of great things going on, but that Sydney has had this sort of strange thing has happened where all of its activity, or a great deal of it, seems to be backing up into this like 12-week period. So, be it Laneway or Big Day Out or Field Day, and they're all clumping up together. So the idea was try and create a focus there. And that means working with government agencies, which is fine, but it takes time, and you just have to marry our priorities, which are probably more about the sort of thing we want to do, with very hard-edged kind of figures about bed nights and tourism and everything else. So yeah, it's just hopefully there's a sort of an overlap between those things and what we're doing, but also because we've got this kind of big free sort of digital light element. Obviously, there's no kind of revenue attached to that, and it requires that. So, but it's been interesting working rather than an event building up to a certain stage and then bringing in government funding for something that was kind of almost envisaged by the government to begin with, and then having to kind of work that through, which has been great, but has its challenges attached to it.
Well, Victorians are very envious of the support you receive. And government could take a bit of a leaf out of your book and your festival. Your opening nights in the park are amazing for the Sydney Festival as well, so they do it very well. Ian, do you employ local people working at your festival?
Yeah, my festival is just 30 minutes outside of Wellington in this little town called Wainuiomata. I definitely try to employ as many locals as possible, but I don't tell anybody. Like, this is actually the second interview, well, even time I've talked about camp publicly in like 3 years, and the last time was in Australia as well. I don't talk about it in New Zealand because I don't want anyone knowing about it. Like, the people who know about camp already know. I have a Facebook event page and my website. That's all you can find out about it. There's no advertising. I don't want like the public knowing about it. I don't want people who are nearby knowing about it, other than like the neighbours' houses that I need to go around and talk to and like make sure they're okay and like meet them and talk to them about sound levels. I don't, the idea of camp is so good. If too many people knew about it, it'd just be crazy. Like, I mean, it's this paradise pretty much where everyone can do whatever they want and rad music is playing all day. And so for me, I just keep on the down low. It's like the word of mouth about it is enough that it does it. So for me, I keep out of. I don't do any press about it. I don't talk to the government about it. You know, I just do what I need to do to get things done legally, and that's it. You know, we got arts funding 1 year from the government, and that was a couple of years ago. I brought an arts curator on board just to like sort of start, you know, because 3 years ago I did the event at this old abandoned secondary school. It was out in the middle of nowhere, and it had just been like overrun for 20 years by pretty much zombies, and the place was like just deserted, and like everything was smashed, and I saw it and I was just like, damn, I got to do an event here. So spent like about a year trying to convince the guy who owned the property to let me do something there. And it was amazing, like, you know, this empty, abandoned swimming pool that fits like 1,000 people, you know, and an old gymnasium. There's 400 rooms at this place. Like, it's an old school. It's a massive old college. And where am I going with that? I have completely forgotten. There was totally a point to that.
Working with the locals.
Yeah. I know that wasn't right. Anyway, well, hey, but yeah, that was a really great time. You should have been there.
It sounds a bit like folk rhythm and life. Have you heard about folk rhythm and life?
No, not at all.
Up the Hume? Yeah, it sounds pretty loose.
Yeah. So I had a point. I'm sorry.
Nikki? This year is the first year we've had council funding for Sugar Mountain. We would like to work with the council more and have more funding in general. At the moment, Sugar Mountain's almost entirely volunteer run. We pay our techs and our crew on the day, and hopefully soon we'll pay everybody, but at the moment it's a really community-based project.
And does the government or the council give you money?
Well, Primavera began without any support from the government or the council, but we began to have support for the last 4 years from the council and from the regional government, and we use this grant to program the city, the concerts around the city, and the Primavera Pro, but not the main part of the festival. But for us, now the support is around 7% of the total of the budget of the festival. That it's the budget of the festivals now it's 7 million euros, and well, we don't need support for the main part of the festival, and if we don't have support, the only thing we have to do is to eliminate the city concerts or the Primavera Pro, but but no, I just speak about it because now in Spain it's very difficult to obtain grants, because all the festivals that depends of the grants it's disappearing in Spain, because there are a lot of festivals that the cities use the festivals to promote the city, but now don't have, the councils don't have enough money to do grants in these festivals, no, and many festivals are disappearing. And we did 2 years ago a study, economic study, on the economic impact in the city is 65 million euros.
65 million euros.
65 million euros, and now the council is treating us better, or but for us it's more important to have the council as our part, because we use parts of the city or the site is from the council, and for us it's better that they help us to have everything necessary to the concerts in the places than not the grants.
So it's sort of security and infrastructure and...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I would just quickly say, what I was getting to before is that, that was the year that I got arts funding because it was very site-specific because of that property, and that's when I saw the property, I was like, we've got to get some stuff happening in all these spaces, we had this completely just trashed, one building was just sort of 100 meters away from the main site, but it was just all filled with trees and debris, and I was like, oh, this looks like a witch's coven. So we went and commissioned some artists to do a witch's coven during the event. Had one artist paint the outside of the swimming pool. We had all these squash courts, and so I got all these different visual artists to do interactive projections inside all the squash courts and stuff. So, whereas the new site I'm at now is does not lend itself really to art in a big way, so that's been toned down a little bit. And I will say, getting locals involved is a massive thing. Locals do my security because locals know who the dodgy locals are. To watch out for those dodgy locals. And I also run a little a bus from my campsite that runs to the local sort of little convenience store, and that goes on the hour every hour. And I work in that with the local shops as well. So and the people who some of the caterers, some of the cleaners, they're all sort of local people. Because it's man, if the locals don't want your event and you're a festival, they'll run you out of town. So it's if you have them all on your side, as soon as you get one or two bitter neighbours, you're all well, hey, all your friends are making money out of this. So if you kick me out of town, you destroy your economy, So yeah.
And did they let the zombies in? Yeah, cool. We'll just do one last question before we take some questions from you guys. We're talking about boutique festivals here that started fairly small, with a big emphasis on the comfort and amenity of the punters. What happens when your boutique festival outgrows its boutiqueness, when you have to move to a larger site or bigger stages, and it loses what sort of made it really special initially?
Well, I mean, we didn't start that small and we're confined within. We've got the venues we have, so it can't just keep expanding out. I think it's. It's an interesting question, I guess, just as a kind of an observer of festivals, is at what point do you start to see it? I think people can actually sustain growth, but you can always tell when they're not having fun with it anymore. You can always tell that moment when the intent of it has been lost, I think. But I think some people have been very, very skillful at maintaining and Primavera is a great example of maintaining the ethos of it. But I guess that depends upon the people at the top. I always thought kind of Michael Eaves from Glastonbury last year sort of saying, I don't think I'll do this anymore, it's not much fun, I mean, the boldness of that, was kind of, I thought that's why Glastonbury still is what it is, because it's actually still driven off some sort of a feeling that somebody wants to do something because it's fun and because it's a good thing to do, rather than it having so many kind of corporate kind of necessities behind it. And I think they can continue to grow, but that's the thing that people have to guard against, is all of those other considerations become so overwhelming that you can, the sense of the spirit of it gets lost.
Probably about 3 years ago, at the fourth event, I guess there's a real that'll do pig moment where I was like, this is actually the right amount of people. This is it. I'm having a really good time. Everyone's watching all the bands. This is great. And then I was just like, this is the amount of people I want at this event. And that was it. And that's just the cap.
How many is that?
It's 1,500 people, just max. For me, that's enough to watch every single band. Everyone has a really good time. It's a controllable amount of people. Because the thing with people is the more people you have coming to your event, the more you have to get for your infrastructure, the more security, more toilets, and it just starts adding up, and this overwhelming thing of your event is costing so much now to run that it's becoming scary if shit goes wrong. So for me, I want it to be fun. The whole point of the event is for me to have a good time. So everything else is just irrelevant. As long as I have a good time. I'm not going to have a good time if there's going to be 10,000 people there, because I'll just be stressed the entire time. So, I mean, there's potential. Maybe one day I'll do a different event, and that might get bigger. But there's no way I could take this event is just what it is. That's that amount of people, and it works, and there's no point fixing something that isn't broken. Is that the same? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I think having too many people is something that we're kind of looking forward to. Sugar Mountain for 3 years now has been based at the Forum, but we do plan to expand outside, still stay in the city, but we're looking at other spaces, other places that we can use and kind of create, what we do in the Forum but elsewhere. So I think, the excitement for us to try other platforms and venues is definitely, a huge push and while we'll do it as opposed to
You've got
driven
tons
out.
of room to move though, man. You've got heaps of room to grow.
Within the Forum?
No, just the festival. Yeah, that's got heaps of scope. Yeah,
we're excited.
So, and that's my problem. I can't grow because the event isn't what the event is anymore. People expect that. They expect that few people, and they pay for it. Like the tickets are expensive, and it's a special thing. I mean, if there were more people wouldn't come, and it would work out about the same amount of people. So I can't get more people. It's impossible. It's actually impossible to get more people.
Alberto, how do you maintain that special feel with 150,000 people there?
Yes, no, it's one of the things that we more discuss in the office. Don't lose this idea of a boutique festival, a small festival for fans, and some people say that the festival is a festival of festivals. That there are a lot of boutique festivals inside in this festival, and it's one of the ideas of to have many stages in the site is to have different routes inside the festival, and to have small concerts around the city. For us, it's as important a concert in the bar or in the park for 100 people that the concert in the main stage for 40,000 people. And, it's our way to maintain this idea. And another thing is we look forward for the more fans of the festival in the internet forum. Sometimes we give the word to them to
we let them speak about and tell their opinion about the festival, the lineup, and
yes, sometimes about these fans speak about the lineup of the festivals. For example, last year, in the 10th anniversary, the fans in the forum, internet forum, decide the first 10 bands of the festival, and they say and they vote for each band, and was the idea that the heart of the festival is alive.
Obviously seeking feedback from the fans and continually talking to them,
yes.
and walking around your own festival is very important.
I think that it's important to know the kind of public we have in the festival. I mean, it's not like teenagers or so, it's public between 25 and 45 years old. So it is really important to make them feel comfortable inside the festival. We have a really big site. So it's sometimes a temptation, I guess, to sell more tickets, but they decided not to do that. They decided to maintain the maximum amount of people, and they have created another parallel festival 1 week later in another place, in another city. So they must keep the quality of the bands and the public feeling comfortable inside the festival site.
Yes, last year we began to Porto Festival, Primavera Sound Porto, and the idea was to have more people in Barcelona, because.
So you've moved to another city rather than make it any bigger.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Please put your hands together for our wonderful panel today. And get along to their festivals if you haven't. We've chosen these festival and these promoters for a reason, so we certainly endorse them. Thanks, guys.